Welcome back to another episode of Around Town. I'm your host, Sarah Olson, and today joining me is Alla Koretsky with HeyAlla, AI growth. What a hot topic this is in today's age.
Thank you so much for having me. I am super excited.
Yeah.
Thanks for reaching out, and yeah, I'm excited to be here.
Tell us, AI, other than just getting on my phone, chat GPTing, anything I want to chat GPT, there's actually strategy involved. Tell me your background. How did you get involved in AI?
Yeah, I was always very interested in emerging technologies. I was one of the first companies that I worked for. We did the first social e-commerce platform of its kind. I'm really kind of dating myself, but yes, I'm that old. So
wow.
Loved working with startups. I was employee number one in two different startups. So saw it from idea to growth to acquisition. Always kind of saw trends that were before everyone else saw them. I was a fashion buyer in my first career out of college.
Amazing.
And so I always saw trends, identify them really early on because that gave me the advantage. And then I love learning and just diving deep into a topic and kind of just geeking out on it. And then I think my superpower is taking that complicated topic and explaining it to others in a very simple way.
Yeah.
And so I've always been around emerging tech. Again, it started with social e-commerce and subscription box company.
Oh, wow.
First of its kind
I remember
in New
that
York.
stuff. Yeah.
We, with a startup in New York called Bloom, we developed an AI, sort of our own large language model. And so that gave me an insight of what it means to work with data sets and how to manipulate that in order to extend the lifetime value of a customer. The company got acquired. I winded up going through the acquisition, started working from home, and then kind of came at this crossroad, like what's next? And in 2019, winded up launching my own company with two other founders around blockchain technology. Again, a very complicated topic, but was very sort of hot at that day. And we developed a product around supply chain transparency for products that people were buying. And so that led me to, how do we use complicated topics and explain it to other companies. And so with that venture, that led me into kind of how do I help other partners take complicated things and adapt it into their everyday work. And so when 2023 came around and ChatGPT and OpenAI hit everyone's, spectrum, I was like, what is this? I need to learn it immediately. Dove into it like the geek that I am, and just like my brain was blown of the possibility and what we can do.
You could have already taught that with all your background.
Well, this was really the first way that everyday consumer can use the tool in really practical ways, right? You no longer needed to learn a computer language in order to communicate with a computer. You can now use human language to communicate, with a very powerful system. And so I started using it for my own business, and so an incredible time safe, and being able to write proposals in seconds and being able to convert data and manipulate it in a way that was going to be beneficial for my marketing or for my operations. And so a friend came and said, can you teach me? And then I was like, sure. And then another friend and another friend. And I was like, okay, maybe I should do classes. And I started bringing, I started doing free workshops once a month and started bringing people together. Mostly I love educating women from my previous startup where I was the only woman in a room with men, that were building around blockchain, around investors that were just mainly men. I did not want the same pattern to be repeating around now with AI and conversations with women. What I'm finding is that women generally are not risk takers by nature, so they feel like they need to know something 95% or 100% in order to start experimenting with it and sort of, or incorporate it into their business. And so that's my number one thing is do not be afraid of it, jump into it. And the number one thing is you need to just use it. You need to use it, and through use, you will learn how to, iterate it, and you'll learn how to teach it to others. The way I learn is I see it, I do it, and I teach it. Through these actions that I'm able to kind of like solidify that information and pass it on to others. And so I encourage anyone is like, just jump in and start using it.
Just jump in. And so you've developed little workshops, mostly for women and women.
Yes, it's mostly women founders that are running multiple businesses or have a passion project that they've always wanted to take on, and they've been busy, or are mothers and they're like wanting to leave their 9 to 5, and they're like, oh, we have this idea for a business that we've been wanting to do for a while. And generally, before if you wanted to start a new business, you needed to have the capital, you needed to have enough time allocated, you needed to raise a fund, you needed to, if you wanted to launch an app or a SaaS product, you needed to have a whole team and to invest initially $20,000 to $30,000 to build an MVP. Now with vibe coding, you can go from an idea to launch within minutes. For it to be really good, maybe spend the next few months doing it, but you don't need a lot of capital and you don't need a whole technical team in order for you to build that. So I love that it democratizes the barrier of entry, and I find that for women especially, it's really important because a lot of times we are very much stretched thin on a lot of things. We take on a lot of things between managing our household, managing our kids' schedules, managing our 9 to 5, and it's like, how can I take on anything
We don't
else?
want to second guess ourselves either, because that's a lot of when you don't know something, you're second guessing whether you're even putting in the right prompts to get the answer that
exactly. What I'm finding a lot of women are using, the ones that are start using AI, right? So ChatGPT right now, the free version is good enough for you to start messing around with it. Then if you know that, okay, now I'm timing out, or now it's getting slower, I'm using it more and more, then you can, update to the $20 a month, which is, it's 2 cups of coffee, and you have a strategy partner, you have a personal assistant, you have your, a whole development team, you have a whole marketing team. So
there's so
we
much
have
about
so much that we can utilize, but don't be afraid to start doing something with it.
Is your preferred program ChatGPT? I've heard of Claude and
so
some others.
my main program is ChatGPT, but I do have subscriptions to Claude, and I do have a subscription to GenSpark. So just because I like to, at this point, for instance, if I have an idea that I want to kind of like filter out and figure out like where do I want to go with it, so I will pull up my ChatGPT, then I will pull out my Claude, and I will pull out my GenSpark. GenSpark uses actually different LLM models, and I'll put the same exact prompt, and I'll see where it takes me. So it's an incredible...
It's like different personalities?
It's kind of like different personalities. Out of the 3, I like pulling out 3 because one will usually it's kind
one's
of like...
millennial, one's Gen Z. I don't...
And it's, I definitely have my, my preferred model, and my preferred model is OpenAI the moment I have the most amount of conversation there.
That's
so it's
amazing.
A lot of history.
And you've got the workshops, and you have a Substack.
I have a Substack, HeyAlla, yes. So I publish weekly AI news from the week before, so it keeps me up to date. You have out of everything that happens, and things move very quickly, so you have to be on top of it. So you just subscribe to HeyAlla Substack, and you'll get all the top news around fashion, e-commerce, startup. And then I do workshops, and I do host several events locally here in St. John's with women in tech and entrepreneurship.
Yes, we're going to get together for that.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes. So there are a lot of in-person events as well, but I mostly work with women founders that are, wanting to go from 0 to 1. That's really where my specialty is.
Oh my gosh, a wealth of information. To read more about Alla and HeyAlla and follow her and all her future gatherings, you can go to hgtvjax.com.